This is the exile and return. So after I've shown the children where they can find the scripture in the Bible from, I would go with 2 Kings 25. And then I've grabbed the exile and return box and the people of God box. Then I talk about this is the desert and it's a dangerous place. And I do all the pieces of that. People do not go there unless they have to. And so here we begin. This is Jerusalem. Here is the wall. And inside is the temple built for God. Here are the people of God. They knew that God was in the temple, but they also thought that was the only place where they could pray to God. People thought the wall of the city would protect them from everything. But the Assyrians came and attacked the city. It was a terrible time. The people fought and some starved to death. And finally the Assyrians went away. Then the Babylonians came, and they did not go away. Their king wanted the city of Jerusalem for himself. He broke down the walls. And they burned the temple. They took many people away. Only a few were left in the land. The soldiers marched God's people away from Jerusalem. They looked back at the smoke of the burning city and wondered if they would ever see it again. As they walked through the desert, they had to get up when the soldiers said. They had to eat what the soldiers said they would eat. They had to go where the soldiers said. They had to go to bed when the soldiers said. Sorry. They grew weary and some died. It took a long time. The people of God were in exile, and they could not go home. geography skills are not amazing today. There. When they came to Babylon, they hung their harps on the weeping willow and sang sad songs. They dreamed of Jerusalem and the temple, but they could not go back. They even faced Jerusalem when they said their prayers. Slowly, God's people began to understand that God was in this place too. God's presence came to them as they gathered to read scriptures and to tell the old stories and to pray. The king of Babylon allowed many of God's people to work. They set up little stores, and some worked for the king. It was a shock when the king of Persia came with his army and took Babylon for himself. The new king began to let some of the people go back to Jerusalem. Some went with Ezra, and they began to rebuild the temple. Sorry, that wasn't the big line. This is actually the little line of the temple. They began to rebuild the temple. And they rebuilt the walls around the city. God's people were no longer in exile. They could go home again. Do you know what happened? Not all of them went home. They knew God was in the strange and foreign land. Some stayed because God was there too. Now I wonder, and there are your wondering questions.